So we are going to be working on drawing a button. Now, you will see that on my dress pant, I have this great little button. And what's cool about it is that you can see through the little holes. And I'm going to show you how to make one. So I'm going to open up a new document. Inches, that's fine. I'm going to make sure that I have my various tools and palettes available. We're going to be using a new palette today, which is called the Pathfinder, and it's a lot of fun, as you will see. And it's under the pull-down menu for Window. Pathfinder is this tool. And the way Pathfinder works is if you put one shape on top of another, right? So I'm going to create my rectangle, and then I'm going to create another one like so. If you marquee them and use your various Pathfinder functions for different things, like I could, if I wanted to create a shape that was a combination of this, I could marquee them and do the unite. And this is very handy when you're doing the back of a garment, right? Because it turns it into one shape, which is really cool, right? Because you can lay shapes on top of one on top of the other, and then you can black arrow unite, and it creates one fully outlined shape of what was there originally, which again is great for doing the backs of your technicals, because you can select the front technical, use unite, and have a perfect outline of that original technical. Okay, but the way we're going to use it today is in conjunction with our handy little align tool. And the align can be found again under the pull down menu, and it'll show up with your Pathfinder. One is in the other palette on the right hand side. It also shows up automatically if you are drawing some shapes, right? It shows up here on the top bar here. And so the way the align tool works is, say you've got some rando group of shapes here. Align can distribute them through the middle. It could distribute them through the center. It can space them out evenly. Now, this one's really handy for things like, I'm going to just have my original Control C, and then I'm going to Control V, Control V, Control V, because I have about 5 of them here, even though they're all in a stack like this. Right, so I have all these rando shapes. I can distribute them evenly, and this is very handy when you are doing buttons, right? We're gonna have a button discussion when we get into dress shirts, but for the moment, if you want to distribute using the align tool, you can align them through the center and then vertical distribute center spaces them out evenly between the top one and the bottom one, okay? So if I had placed this one higher and this one lower, I'm gonna Command Control 0 so I can fit that in there. You will see that I can distribute through the middle and then perfectly evenly distribution. This is really handy with things like buttons, or if you have any repeating elements that you want to be exactly distanced apart, it will function very well with those. But what we're going to be using this for, I'm actually going to keep 4 of my spheres for my buttonholes, and then I'm going to keep the 5th one for the button itself, and then I'm going to keep that one for the outside of the button. I'm going to get rid of the rest of them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, first of all, make these nice and big so everyone can see what I'm doing. Make that one slightly smaller because this is going to be, right, like the edge of our button. It looks like it disappeared because one is in front of the other. The big one is in front of the little one, okay? So that's working for me. I'm actually gonna take that out because I wanna do a Pathfinder function. I wanna use divide, which you're gonna see is very handy for this, because what divide does is if you have one shape on top of the other, and again, I have to put this one at the back, arrange, send to back. There we go. So I've got one shape sitting on top of the other. If I marquee and use divide, what it does is it actually cuts out like a cookie cutter what's underneath. Now, there's one extra step in this for it to work. I mean, it's worked already, but Illustrator automatically groups them, which we don't want, because right now it doesn't look like that's see-through because they're grouped. So if I right-click, ungroup, and then select the outline, see how I have that little handy one? And this is now completely see-through. This is so handy for lots of things. Anything that you have a cutout of, you can use the Pathfinder for, but just don't forget that the second stage of that is the ungroup, okay? So I'm gonna get back over onto our, there we go. And I want these to be smaller because I want them to be buttonholes. So I'm gonna hold shift while I make them smaller. And then I want to do this. I want 1, 2 aligned through the center. And that's it's looking pretty good. Okay. So once I have the right size, then I'm actually going to group these. Control C, Control V. So I have my second set of buttonholes. And the cool thing about the align tool is if something is grouped, Illustrator treats it like one object, like that. Oh, which I'm crazy about. I'm gonna move that a little higher. And looking good. And again, I'm gonna group that because that will be my buttonholes. I'm gonna lay that on top of my shape like that. And then I'm going to head over to Pathfinder. I'm gonna use my divide. And I'm gonna have to remember to ungroup it because Illustrator is going to want to automatically group it after we've made the divide. Look at that. Oh, there's our button. Okay. So that is our amazing buttonhole. Now I want to have a button that has a raised edge, like a lot of the buttons do. Certainly on a dress pant, you would have that little raised edge on the edge of your button. So I'm going to, first of all, align, center, so it's perfectly centered. Then I'm going to, again, do my Pathfinder. And it has filled in our holes, so we need to ungroup it. And so we have our beautiful buttonhole, and you can delete the button. our buttons, and the buttonholes can go. Oops. Just do not forget to group your new button. Object group. There we go. Done. Okay, so you're obviously going to want to make this a lot smaller. Now, as you can see, it starts to get really bunchy because of my stroke. I have a 1-point stroke on that. So I could do a couple different things. Like once I make it really teeny, it just gets very thick. So a couple things you can do. One is you can play with your stroke, take that down to a 1/4 point. That's probably the best for this. The other thing you can do is there is a tool called Scale, and it's over here. And I'm going to do the click out. And what the Scale tool does is you can make things bigger or smaller. Right? I'm going to preview it. There we go. And you can also scale strokes and effects. So that means it can scale the line weight as well with it. So sometimes you may want to scale your lines down. The only problem with that is if something's really intricate and then you scale the strokes and effects and you make it really teeny, you can't actually see anything. So I would say, if possible, I would go the route of just take it down to a 0.5 or 0.25, because that's pretty much as small as you're going to be able to see it on the garment anyway. And then I'm going to Control C, and I could pop it into a document like that. And I'll get rid of button number 1, and I will put on button number 2. So that is how to do an amazing button. And just like with grabbing our, you're going to want that as close to center front as possible, because that is where that button would sit. Just as you copy and paste your information from drawing to drawing to drawing, just changing the style information and name up here. Once you've drawn one button, that button is going to have a lot of mileage, because we are going to be using this button again and again. So you basically draw it once, and then you have it ready for all the times you're going to use buttons. And that is using the Align tool and the Pathfinder tool very effectively in your Illustrator drawing to create a button.